A 32-year-old earning $85,000 a year will statistically accumulate less wealth over their lifetime than someone who earned $45,000 throughout their 20s and then stopped working entirely, not because they are bad with money. Because of what happens in the 10 years between 28 and 38, a window so financially destructive that wealth advisors have a name for it, the wealth destruction decade. This contradicts everything we are told about career progression and success. Work hard through your 20s, climb the ladder, start making real money in your 30s, build wealth, retire comfortably. The system works if you just get that promotion, that raise, that better job. This is the narrative we inherit, the one that shapes every career decision and life choice we make in our 20s. But the data tells a different story. Vanguard's retirement analysis found that people who earned in the top 40% of incomes between ages 30 and 40 had 23% less wealth at retirement than predicted models suggested they should, despite higher lifetime earnings. This is not a small discrepancy. This is not statistical noise. This is a systematic pattern of wealth destruction happening to the people who should be building wealth most aggressively. Your 30s are not when wealth building accelerates, they are when it gets systematically dismantled. Not by obvious disasters or bad decisions, but by a convergence of social timing, biological imperatives, and economic structures that all peak simultaneously in this exact decade. Consider someone we will call Sarah. At 29, she gets promoted to $78,000. She finally feels like she has made it. She has been responsible, has $12,000 in savings, rents a modest apartment, drives a paid-off 2015 Honda Civic. Her life looks nothing like financial irresponsibility. She reads personal finance advice. She contributes to her 401k. She tracks her spending. She is doing everything right. 10 years later, Sarah earns $115,000. Her income has grown by 47%. She should have built significant wealth. Instead, her net worth is $43,000, barely triple what she had at 29. Despite earning nearly $900,000 over that decade, she retained 3.4% of her gross income as wealth. Where did the rest go? What happened was not dramatic. There was no medical bankruptcy, no gambling addiction, no financial catastrophe. What happened was systematic, and it is happening to millions of people right now, in their early 30s, who have no idea they are in the most financially dangerous decade of their lives. The wealth destruction decade happens because 6 different systems converge in your 30s with mathematical precision. Biological, social, economic, institutional, psychological, and temporal forces all align in a way that extracts maximum wealth from you during the exact years when compound interest matters most. Start with biology. Human fertility peaks in a narrow window. This is not cultural pressure. This is biological reality. The decision to have children, if it is going to happen, typically must happen between 28 and 38. This single biological fact triggers a cascade of massive expenses that all hit simultaneously. The average cost of childbirth with insurance in the United States is $4,500. The first year of childcare costs $15,000 to $20,000 in urban areas. Maternity or paternity leave creates income loss averaging $8,000 to $15,000. And 73% of parents move to larger housing within 2 years of their first child, according to a 2021 Zillow study. Watch what happens to Sarah. She gets pregnant at 31. She and her partner decide they need to move from their $1,400 per month one-bedroom apartment to a $2,400 per month two-bedroom before the baby arrives. That is $12,000 per year in permanent expense increase. They will keep this apartment for 6 years. That is $72,000 in additional rent, money that will never compound, never grow, never work for her in retirement. But here is what makes this devastating. These are not frivolous choices. These are necessary, loving, human decisions. You cannot tell someone not to have children for financial optimization. You cannot tell someone to raise an infant in inadequate housing. The cruelty of the wealth destruction decade is that it extracts the most money for the most justified reasons. And everyone in your social circle hits these milestones simultaneously. Your college friends, your coworkers, your siblings, all getting married, having kids, buying homes within a 3 to 4 year window. The median age of first marriage in the United States is 30.5 for men and 28.6 for women. 67% of weddings have over 100 guests. The average wedding costs $30,000. Even if you have a modest wedding yourself at $15,000, you will attend 15 to 20 friends' weddings over the decade. Each wedding you attend costs $500 to $800 in gifts, attire, and travel. Bachelor and bachelorette parties add another $4,000 over the decade. Total wedding-related expenses, $31,000. None of this builds wealth. All of it feels socially mandatory. This is the social synchronization trap. When everyone around you is doing something, it stops feeling like a choice and starts feeling like a requirement. The expensive choice becomes the default choice. And you make these choices not because you are irresponsible, but because you are human. Then comes the asset timing trap. The 30s are when people are told they should buy their first home, their first new car, make their first major purchases. The median age of first-time homebuyers is 33. Average down payment is $30,000 to $50,000. Closing costs add 2 to 5% of the home price, another $8,000 to $20,000. First-year home ownership surprise costs average $8,700. Sarah buys a home at 34. She has been saving diligently, has $45,000 for a down payment. The $340,000 house seems reasonable at her income, but look at the actual math. $45,000 down payment, $12,000 in closing costs, $4,200 in first-year maintenance and repairs, $8,000 for furniture and immediate needs, total first year $69,200. But the real wealth destruction is not visible in that first year. That $45,000 down payment, if invested at age 30 instead of spent at 34, would be worth $520,000 at age 65, assuming 8% annual returns. The home will appreciate, but it is now shelter, not an investment. She cannot access the equity without selling her shelter or taking on debt against it. Compare two people from the 2010s. Person A bought a home in 2014 at age 32 for $280,000 with $50,000 down. Person B kept renting at $1,600 per month and invested the $50,000 plus the difference in monthly costs. By 2024, Person A has a home worth $420,000, owes $180,000, net equity of $240,000. Person B has an investment account worth $340,000, liquid and accessible. Person A has more on paper, but it is locked in shelter. Person B has mobility, liquidity, and actually more wealth when you account for the opportunity cost of the down payment. Neither choice is wrong, but only one preserves optionality. And through all of this, lifestyle inflation runs silently in the background. Income increases trigger automatic lifestyle expansion that feels proportional but is not. A 40% raise does not increase savings by 40%. It typically increases spending by 35% and savings by 5%. For every $10,000 in salary increase, average savings increase by only $1,200. The other $8,800 goes to higher rent, better car, nicer food and experiences, subscription creep, wardrobe upgrades. By age 35, the average person has 4.3 times more monthly subscriptions than at 25. Sarah's income grows from $78,000 to $115,000 over the decade, a $37,000 increase. At age 29, she saves $800 per month, 12% of gross income. At age 39, she saves $1,400 per month, 14.5% of gross. She increased her savings rate. She did what the advice tells you to do. But if she had maintained 12% of $78,000 for 10 years and invested it all, she would have $162,000. Her actual path, accounting for lifestyle inflation and the delayed savings increases, left her with $134,000. The difference is $28,000, an entire year of her original salary, just evaporated into lifestyle expansion that felt reasonable at every step. I work hard, I deserve this. This is the most expensive sentence in personal finance. It is not wrong, but it is weaponized against you in your 30s because you finally have money to spend on what you deserve, and the gap between deserving something and being able to afford its opportunity cost is where wealth goes to die. Return to Sarah at age 39. She did everything right by conventional standards. She climbed from $78,000 to $115,000. She bought a home, she had 2 children. She saved consistently, never stopped contributing to her 401k, never carried credit card debt. She married someone with similar income. Her household earns $210,000. By all external measures, she is successful. Her retirement account has $187,000. Her home has $120,000 in equity after 5 years of payments. Total investable wealth, $307,000. She is 39 years old and has $307,000. This sounds good until you run the counterfactual. If Sarah had kept her $78,000 lifestyle throughout her 30s, invested every dollar of raises and promotions, rented instead of buying, and delayed children by 3 years, she would have $680,000 in investable assets today. The difference is $373,000. At compound growth to retirement, that is $2.1 million. She cannot go back. She loves her children. Her home is her children's stability. Her life is full and meaningful. but she will work until 67 instead of having the option to stop at 55. That is 12 years, 4,380 days of mandatory work. The cost of doing everything right in her 30s, and Sarah is high income. Bring this to median United States income of $59,000. Same pattern, smaller numbers. Instead of 2.1 million difference, it is 890,000. Instead of retiring at 55, maybe never retiring at all. The wealth destruction is proportionally worse for the middle class because there is no room for error, no second act, no inheritance to paper over the gap. The system does not force you. Banks, the real estate industry, the wedding industry, childcare providers, car manufacturers, they do not put a gun to your head. They just make sure everything you are told you should want happens to cost the most money at the exact age when that money would compound most aggressively. They know the pattern. They know exactly when you are vulnerable. They know you can finally afford to pay. They know you feel like you should do these things now. Here is the reframe that changes everything. The wealth destruction decade works because it disguises permanent financial decisions as temporary life phases. You do not buy a bigger apartment for 3 years. You reset your housing cost baseline for life. You do not add childcare expenses temporarily. You add a dependent who increases your minimum cost of living for 18 years. You do not buy a home for 5 years. You lock your down payment away from compound growth for 30 years. Every decision in your 30s feels like it is about now. But every decision is actually about the next 40 years. And nobody tells you that when you are making the choice, you are not buying a thing, you are choosing a cost structure for the rest of your life. And you are making these choices during the only decade when compound interest would do most of the work for you. Your 20s do not build wealth, you do not have any money. Your 40s do not build wealth, the expenses from your 30s are now permanent. Your 50s do not build wealth, you are trying to catch up on retirement with 15 years left instead of 35. The wealth-building decade is your 30s, and the entire consumer economy is designed to extract maximum value from you during those exact 10 years. You cannot opt out of your 30s. You cannot pause biology. You cannot ignore social reality. But you can make these decisions with your eyes open to what they actually cost, not in monthly payments. In decades of compounding you will never get back. On housing, the question is not, can I afford the mortgage? The question is, what is the 30-year opportunity cost of this down payment? And am I willing to trade that specific amount of future wealth for this specific house right now? Run the actual math. $50,000 down payment at age 32, at 8% growth to age 65, is $634,000. Is this house worth $634,000 of retirement money? Maybe yes, but only if you chose it knowing that number. On children, you cannot financially optimize having kids and you should not try, but you can control the expensive aesthetics around them. The child needs safety, food, love, attention. The child does not need a $2,400 per month apartment, a $40,000 SUV, a $600 stroller, nursery influencer aesthetic, $200 birthday parties. The average family with kids spends an estimated $310,000 on non-essentials before the child turns 18. That is future wealth, not present necessity. On lifestyle, implement what I call lifestyle lock for 5 years. When you get a raise, your spending does not change for 60 months. Every dollar of increased income goes to investments. Not 10%, not 20%, 100%. You were surviving on your current income yesterday. You can survive on it for 5 more years while the raise compounds. After 5 years, you can increase lifestyle proportionally. But those first 5 years of a raise, invested in your early 30s, will do more for your retirement than 15 years of normal savings in your 40s and 50s. This is not about deprivation. This is about sequence. The same life, the same house, the same family, entered into at 35 instead of 31, can mean the difference between retiring at 58 and working until 70. 5 years of delay in your 30s buys you 12 years of freedom in your 60s. That is the trade nobody tells you about. Sarah cannot go back, but you might still be 27, or 29, or 32. You might be standing exactly where she stood, feeling like you have finally made it, finally have money to spend on the life you have been waiting for, and you do. But spend it knowing what it costs. Not in dollars today, in years of freedom tomorrow. The wealth destruction decade is not a moral failure, it is a structural trap, but traps only work when you do not see them. Every wedding you attend, every house you tour, every salary increase you celebrate, you are standing at a fork. One path leads to the life that looks successful now, the other leads to the life that is actually free later. Most people do not realize they chose until it is too late to choose differently. You are not broke in your 20s because you are irresponsible. You are broke because you do not have money yet, but you will destroy more wealth in your 30s than you ever had in your 20s. Not through catastrophe, through 1,000 reasonable decisions that all happen to converge in the exact decade when compound interest would have done the most work. That is the system, and now you see it.